Hello and welcome back to Karma Stories. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have some stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. Nothing else to add on today, so let's just jump right in. This story comes to us from Pyreforge. Boss said I must use my vacation before month end, but also no one can take time off, so I read the policy. Company sends a shiny HR email. Subject line all caps, use it or lose it. We had to burn our remaining PTO by the 30th or it evaporates into the sun. Same day, my manager announces in stand-up that due to quarter end, no one can take time off until the 1st. I asked how to reconcile that. He shrugs and says, talk to HR. HR says, talk to your manager. Cute loop. So I open the handbook because I am a petty librarian when annoyed. Page 14 has this little sentence I never noticed. PTO requests not explicitly denied in writing within 48 business hours are considered approved. There is also a note that partial day PTO is allowed in 1-hour blocks. Thank you, legal team. I submitted 10 separate requests. 2 hours every morning next week, 2 hours every afternoon the week after, a random Friday 3 to 5 to watch a plumber, and 1 full day to visit my mom. I sent the request in our HR portal, which auto-emails the manager and CCs a shared mailbox nobody watches. Then I went back to my tasks and set reminders. 48 business hours pass, no denial. The portal changes each request to approved, green checkmark, confetti. Monday comes and at 9:58 a.m. I put a cheerful note in the team chat. Heading out, see you at noon. Manager pings me to hop on a client call. I reply with the screenshot of the policy and the portal approval. Silence. Then 3 dots typing. Then nothing. By Wednesday, our calendar looked like cheese. Half the team members remembered they also had PTO sitting around and started filling it in little blocks. Meetings kept colliding with green bars. Finance realized that if we did not use the days now, they would be paid out at separation later, which they hate. HR wrote a new post saying we should coordinate, but that approvals already granted stand. My manager called a huddle to ask why productivity dipped. I said we're following HR's instructions to use PTO. He said he meant in November. I sent him the original email timestamped this month. He sighed and said he never thought anyone would actually read the handbook. I used every hour, took my mom to lunch, and my plumber fixed the cursed sink at 3:40 p.m. while I drank tea. Next week, a new policy appeared. PTO must be requested in full day increments during quarter end, and managers must respond in 24 hours. Thanks for clarifying, truly. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called CoderJoe1. It says, I used to encourage my employees to use all of their vacation time as well as their sick time. I wanted my team to avoid burning out as it took nearly a year to get a new hire fully trained. Another commenter down below called Easy Lengthiness 7179 said, new policy doesn't address a manager randomly deciding that no one can take PTO that month. You will be stuck in the same boat in the future with no loophole to use your time. Okay, maybe one of you out there can explain this to me a little bit because I'm not understanding that they said at the beginning it was use it or lose it for their PTO, but later down they said that it would have to be paid out at the end of the year. So if it's being paid out at the end of the year, it's really not a use it or lose it scenario. Or am I just seeing that wrong? If you're on YouTube or on Spotify and you know better than I do, comment down below and let me know. This story comes to us from Joe Drell Bank Pants, ghosting and loving it. Recently, my company introduced a new process for supplying customers with expensive consumables. Previously, this process involved a lot of direct communication, numerous emails, and face-to-face meetings with customers to understand their needs. However, while I was on PTO, everything changed. Without any notice or consultation, a completely new system was implemented. My team, which used to handle about 65% of the previous process, had no involvement whatsoever in designing or approving this new method. Now, instead of collaborating directly with customers and colleagues, I've been given a standardized form divided into 4 sections. One for me, one for sales, one for logistics, and one for territory assistants and managers. My section of the form is minimal. All I do is indicate how many boxes to supply. Critical details such as who the customer is, where the order is going, pricing adjustments, and preferential rates, information I use to manage, are no longer included. To make things worse, customer details on the forms are often incorrect. I used to fix those errors in the system, but I no longer have permission to do so. That's now handled by head office. Even though I know my customer base well and try to provide accurate updates, my emails now bounce back. When I raised these issues, I was simply told to follow the form and not deviate. So I did. I completed my section, sent it to the designated address, and moved on. Nothing happened until months later when a customer called to say they were running critically low on consumables. I escalated the issue to my manager, but by that point, I had already submitted 24 forms without any feedback or visible results. Recently, while I've been off recovering from surgery, I received an email asking for the same data I used to provide under the old system. I've chosen not to respond. That information is scattered across old emails and records. It's no longer my responsibility. Ironically, the new process that was supposed to reduce costs and simplify operations has left 3 department heads confused and unable to proceed. They don't know the customer names, product details. We have 197 different products, or order history, only the number of boxes. The system they rely on can't function without accurate data input, and since I'm now strictly following the form as instructed, that data isn't being entered anymore. In short, the new process has stripped away the practical knowledge and collaboration that once made the system work. It's inefficient, confusing, and ultimately counterproductive. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Gosh Darn Shadowban. It says, "It really is strangely gratifying when work has the decency to fall into chaos while you're away." Another commenter down below called Stubborn Kindness said, "This is legitimately one of the stupidest management decisions I've ever seen on this sub. Most decisions have a way to be reversed, whether costly or not in the short term. This absolutely doesn't. It's basically, don't do your job, plug one set of figures in with very little context, do nothing else, don't bring anything to our attention, don't fix any queries, issues, or mistakes, just do this one thing." Yeah, at some point, if you're not the person making all those decisions, you just need to sit back, do what they told you to do, and let everything fall on its face. Maybe then they'll realize how bad of a decision they made, but probably not. This story comes to us from Kitty Queen Gada Orley. Money is money. I work as a cashier in a supermarket. I mentally scream every single shift because people really stress me out these days. But alas, I can pay my bills. My workplace has a ton of rules, some stupid, some not. For example, we have a minimum of $5 per card transaction. Yes ma'am, even Apple Pay. But personally, I gotta say I only follow that rule when a manager is around, or if the client is a real jerk, you understand. There's a rule that I do understand. We cashiers can't accept a huge amount of loose change or change rolls without a manager's approval. We can totally accept something like $4 in just quarters, but not that same amount in just dimes and cents. We have a Coinstar machine literally steps away for that. Well, guess what happened some days ago? This oldish lady who couldn't even grant me a good evening wanted to give me her whole total in quarters, dimes, nickels, and cents. Her total was about $12 with some cents, so I couldn't definitely accept it. I explained the rules, what I stated before, and even offered to help to manage the machine, but she refused and said that money is money, you're just being a lazy bee because you probably don't even know how to count. I stood there mentally insulting her, but physically still smiling, staring at her. She sighed and fetched a 20 from her purse, but stopped. This lady suddenly had a huge grin, put the bill in her purse again, gave me a 10 and $3 in nickels, dimes, and quarters. You explained the maximum was 4, right? Now I wanted to scream, but I remained calm. I simply sighed and admitted defeat until I had the brightest idea. I was supposed to give her 67 cents in return, and I made sure to open the roll of cents I had. Slowly, I counted and gave her the whole change in just cents. She scoffed and asked me, "What the F is all this?" My answer, with a huge customer service smile, I said, money is money, right? She just dumped it all in her purse, grabbed her stuff, and walked away fuming. Oh well. I love stories like this where we get a double dose of malicious compliance. One dose from the customer, one dose from OP, and everybody walks away fuming because we just want to burn it all down, right? This story comes to us from I Want Short Nick. Rude client wasted almost 1 hour to hear same info I told her already from a different employee. Some years ago, I worked at a bank office, not in the US. I was mediocre at sales, but good at service and process, conditions, pricing, etc. So I was put at administrator position, not a manager one. My job was to meet incoming clients and help them to solve their problem by helping them with the ATM or mobile app, or by navigating them to the right specialist via electronic queue, etc. So there was this woman, let's call her customer. She came to the office and asked for money withdrawal. I recommended her to use the ATM and she told me she already used it but can't withdraw more due to daily limits. I asked how much she wanted to withdraw. It was 600,000 of our local currency, and replied that due to bank policy to withdraw that amount of money via cashier, she needed to order it 5 days for safety reasons, and the only amount we can give her today is 150,000 without fee, 300,000 more with 2.5% fee. But she can use the ATM tomorrow and withdraw all the needed amount with no fees, because daily limit will refresh. She wasn't happy, and I can understand this, but then she started being rude and unreasonable. I need to talk with a more experienced employee. What do you mean I can't withdraw my money? It's a bank. They will tell you the same. It's a bank policy. Fastest and cheapest way for you to withdraw needed amount is to use the ATM the next day. Technically, after midnight, if it's somehow urgent. No, I don't want to talk with you. You're some newbie. Just give me the queue number and I'll talk with the proper bank worker. Now, worth noting that I was most experienced employee in the office in terms of operational work, including the manager. So I giggled inside, but that was her clear will. So I gave her the number and moved on. 20 minutes later, yeah, it was a busy evening, her number was called to desk, and she started asking the same questions from a new girl, worked around 1 month at this point. Let's name this girl Eve. She wasn't familiar enough with everything, so she started casual identification procedure by checking the client's ID in the UV, searching for client profile in the database, sending her SMS code to approve entering profile, etc. So around 5 minutes more were gone. Then Eve asked what operation Lady wanted to do, and Lady repeated her question. Eve tried to start withdrawal and noticed she can't make more than 450,000 and there is a fee. And what do you think? She called me to help. I walked around the desk and asked Eve what happened. Look, customer wants to withdraw 600,000 and I can't type more than 450,000 and there's a fee. I'm sorry, I can't help here. Client insisted to have more experienced employees to answer their questions, and I left back to my workplace. After that, there was some banter between customer and poor Eve, trying to explain the same stuff while I typed everything to her in work chat. Then she gave up and offered customer to talk with the manager if she's unhappy. She waited 20 more minutes for the manager and heard the same info I told her 50 minutes ago, and Eve repeated 20 minutes ago. Today, she can have 150,000 for free and 300,000 more with fees. After midnight, she can have 600,000 with no fees via the ATM. And in case of big withdrawals in the future, she needs to order cash in advance. Customer left furiously, not looking at me. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called StormRage85. It says, I get why she's pissed. It's her money and she can't withdraw it. I know it's policy for a reason, but it doesn't make it any less annoying. That being said, taking it out on branch staff is effing stupid. Anyone who has the power to change that kind of rule isn't working in a branch. Also, check things like daily limits when you open the account. Pretty sure it has to be in the contract, at least in most places. Yeah, these days banks only keep a certain amount of money on hand because it's just a reducing risk kind of thing. So if you want that kind of money, letting them know in advance would be the way to do it. But OP gave them all the options they needed to get that money out. Now, one thing they didn't cover here, and I don't know if it works this way in the country that OP is from, but couldn't they take money out at one bank and then go to another bank and take out some more. I know in my town there's at least 2 branches of the bank that I deal with, so where they are, I'm guessing there's probably more than 1 branch as well, or there's at least another branch not that far away. Anyway, in this story, OP and the teller both followed exactly what they were supposed to do. The manager finally put the customer in their place by telling them the exact same thing, and everybody moved on. Except for the customer, I'm guessing. This story comes to us from Tubis61. Student made demands regarding a project and found out the hard way. One of the degree modules I teach involves students working on a group programming project. Nothing too elaborate, but the aim of the module is to develop skills they will need if they go on to work in the IT field. After all, if you're doing a computer science degree, you must be thinking of going down that route. This one student is an absolute entitled nightmare. He uses Gen AI for a lot of his work, and it really does show. He always pushed back on the written remarks on his work, but every time I sit him down and ask him to explain the code he produces, he struggles and often has no idea how the code he submitted works. In this project, he came up and told me he cannot work with the others in the group and must work alone. I explained that there are specific group activities and efforts I would be marking, and that I need to see his input within the group. There was no way I could excuse him from the group activities in the module. However, I could see he was not going to budge, and therefore complied with his demand to work on the project alone. All the students in my class had been assigned to their groups, and I did check in with all of them on a weekly basis. This one guy was steadfastly refusing to work with the rest of his group, and as I had complied with his request, he was working on his project alone. In my interim feedback at the end of each stage, I repeated that he really should work with the group, or he risked a failing mark for the module. I made sure this feedback was sent to him both in hard copy and also via email, with read receipts, which I kept. Cue the end of the module and the submission for marking. Sure enough, the one student submitted a project based just on his own work, and had not engaged with the group he was asked to work with. There were several issues with this project. First and most important was, it didn't meet the brief. The code simply didn't do what we asked for. He lost marks for that aspect of the project. As he had not worked with others in the group, he was not awarded any of the group marks allocated for the work. Because his code was so far away from the specification, I called him in to explain the code, and he demonstrated a complete lack of understanding of the code he submitted. More marks dropped. His eventual mark for this assignment was a hard fail. He must now resit the entire module. There is, of course, one real downside of this whole thing that affects me. I've got him in my group again for the reset of the module. So this guy's taking a computer science degree, and it's clearly obvious that he's using generative AI for all of his assignments and projects. Okay, shouldn't that be an immediate 0 on everything they put in if you can prove that they used AI to do it and can't describe to you how any of it works? That's just obvious that they're not doing the work themselves. So, 0. You fail. Good luck. Alright, I think we'll go ahead and end this one here. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow us on your preferred podcasting platform. If you're on YouTube, please drop a like on the video. It really does help us out. I thank you all for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.